Before we start our podcast today, we'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the land on which we are meeting,
the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and pay our respects to the elders past, present and emerging.
Just open the window and stick my head out and shout out, "Hello, I'm here." That would work.
Hello and welcome to the podcast. You're here with Janine.
And Kevin, and one of us is going to tell you what we're doing today. It's me. We're going to talk about Lost and Found. But first off, we were going to talk about our mornings, I think. Yeah?
I think that was it.
Yeah.
Yesterday I had...
But that's not this morning.
No, I'm going to talk about yesterday.
Okay, that's cheating already.
What happened to be a morning.
Okay, well, it can be any morning then.
It could be.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Actually, it's not today, this morning, when the person's listening to the podcast, is it?
Oh my God, now you're going to get complicated.
I'm complicated.
Yeah. All right, no, you're right, it's not. Yeah.
So, yesterday morning, or morning for me, I got up at a different time, much earlier, and I was taking my car into RACV for some repairs. So I'd travelled to a place I don't normally travel, and I thought I'd get a coffee on the way. So I stopped off at a different coffee shop and was met with a lovely person who served me, and she was interacting with me and smiled, and I think I got some food as well, and she said, "Oh, we make it here all ourselves," and I went, "Oh, I saw that, and that was really good." So we had this interaction and this conversation rather than grabbing the coffee and going, but that interaction where I guess I was received as a person.
Okay.
And smiled at.
Mm-hmm.
And noticed.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went to a different service station, filled up with petrol. I was a bit earlier, so I decided to do that. And the same thing happened. I went in to pay my petrol bill and said, "How's your day?" And the person went, "Oh, not so busy this morning." And I said, "Mine's earlier than usual." And it wasn't so much a valuable content in terms of the conversation, but the person was present with me, and that felt really good, and I was able to give them my presence.
Connection.
Yeah.
Twice. In the early morning.
And it changed my day. Very different.
And you got up at stupid o'clock.
I did.
Yeah.
I did.
Pretty good.
And that made a difference too, I think. I was buggered when I first got up, but moving around and having those two interactions changed my day. Something very different. And your day?
Yeah. Can we skip that?
No, we can't skip it. Well, we can.
I'm just thinking of a better day, but I can't. So I woke up this morning having had a lovely sleep and interesting dreams, and I'm still laying in bed, but had decided it was time to get up, and it's I don't know, my usual time, around about 7. I was just about to put my feet on the floor, and I went, "Oh, why am I feeling angry?" And I just, not really angry, irritated, and I couldn't work that out. Though I have no reason to be angry. There is nothing. I got all the things that I need to do done. Locked away. And
has it been a familiar state for you to wake up like that?
No. Well, no. Because it's not, because I had no reason to feel. There was nothing that I could hang it on.
Okay.
And normally I go, I haven't talked to this person about this, or I haven't done this thing, and there was nothing.
Okay.
I've tidied up everything, even the big things.
Okay, but that suggests that maybe it's been familiar in the past. To wake up frustrated or angry.
Wake up feeling like, no, maybe not.
Okay.
Sometimes, I don't know. Not like today, anyway.
Okay.
And I didn't know what to do with that. But I'm listening to you and thinking, yeah, having someone to talk to. So, a bit of delicacy here. I don't have anyone to talk to with early in the morning unless I do what you did, which is to get up and go out. And when I'm working, which I did a bit of this morning, I wasn't work. I had to talk to people and I had to get ready for that. I work from home. So by the time I talked to anybody, it was 9 o'clock and the need for interaction was gone, and I was well into business stuff and working. Yeah. So it wasn't great. And then I came around here and I told you about that.
Did it feel different then?
It's like, what do I do? Everything's okay. So what do I do? What do I feel? I don't know. I feel irritated then. I'm irritated at myself because I don't know how to be when everything's okay. You know, everything's not perfect, but it's okay, it's manageable, and I could do whatever I want today. The world is definitely my oyster. You know, I'm not the richest person in the world, not the youngest, not the most handsome, but I can put my feet on the floor and do whatever I do. I'm a free soul today, so why is it irritating? Yeah. And it's because...
You put that well.
Yeah, but it's irritating now that I've said that, I realise, because I've always been tied. There's always been a tie to something that's going on.
You mean to a difficulty?
Yes.
Yeah.
A difficulty which I might see as external, but is really internal.
Yeah, okay.
And eventually I'll come to it being internal, and I didn't have that.
Yeah.
I woke up feeling exactly as I described. And you would think I'd feel great. My feet would hit the floor, but no, it was so different.
But you moved through that, Kevin. It didn't stay.
No, it didn't stay. So how long did it stay for?
Until you had the connection with yourself?
Yeah, so before I talked to anybody on the phone, so less than an hour.
Yeah, okay.
Maybe a half an hour. But anyway, by then I'd done things like I listened to a podcast of Brooke Castillo just because she'd released one.
Yeah, okay.
And it was okay. It wasn't great. It was okay. That was enough.
Yeah, but you did some things to try and shift it. Yeah. I'm thinking that quite a few of our listeners might find themselves in a similar circumstances. I think since COVID, there's a lot of us working from home, and there's not that opportunity to connect with people and to help them shift that energy. And sometimes I think that we can wake up in a lost state, in a frustrated state, in an anxious state, and it's not until we are soft or gentle with ourselves and that inner listening that the shift can actually occur, or we can choose to notice it and make that shift.
Or just open the window and stick my head out and shout out, "Hello, I'm here." That would work. Not.
Apparently that's a New York thing in the early days in the Bronx, where you'd open a window, "Hey, is anyone there?"
I'm just reminded when you said that. I don't watch telly. I hardly ever watch telly, but I must have been looking at a screen somewhere. And when COVID first hit around the world, and there were images of, I think it was Rome, you know, with people on their little balconies, and they all come out and they talk to each other. Then somebody comes out with an instrument and they start playing, you know, very Italian. It was beautiful.
Yeah, it is.
It was fantastic. And we're all locked in our little apartments and houses, and so are they.
Yeah.
But they've made the best of it.
Yeah.
They've got little balconies, you know, they're really small. You get maybe one or two people. That was enough.
Yeah.
They were out there talking, cooking, playing, singing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And,
that connection stuff is really important, I think. How we do it is possibly going to change according to our culture, according to our availability of those around us, all of that sort of stuff. So
I have to reach out to myself. I have to connect with myself.
Yeah.
And then I can connect with what's that? What's that about waking up grumpy? Oh, yeah, you know, like I usually have something that ties me down, and there's something that I've got to do that I don't want to do, a thing that I've been avoiding, or a thing that I've been stretching out, and you know, I made that molehill a mountain, and there's, at the moment, still now and tomorrow and the day, there isn't anything.
I think that actually brings us into our topic of lost and found, because I think part of what we're doing is just I guess talking about those days, if we put it in those categories, if you like, you started lost and found.
I don't know why I called it lost and found, because that just reminds me of Lancing Railway Station and where I grew up. Go and collect the stuff that I lost on the train. Which, yeah.
Does it still fit? You happy with the topic?
Yeah. When I said it, I meant exactly that. Like, I woke up this morning and I'm feeling lost. What's all this about?
Yeah.
And then within not very long, I found it. I go, oh, this is what it's about. So I can let the irritability go, and I don't have to do anything. Like, I think I also had some expectations, like, you're a free soul today, and maybe the next few days, and maybe quite a long time. So jump in your car and go somewhere, do something, go on holiday. All that sort of stuff, and I didn't have to.
No, gosh, that sounds like a lot of pressure.
Yes, it is. Yeah. And so the found bit is I'm okay with it. I came around here and we talked about that, and we talked about a lot of other things, and it was kind of gone by then. Yeah.
I've got a question for our listeners.
For our listeners?
Yeah.
They're inside the computer.
I think they're out there.
Oh, okay.
Have you got that someone to connect with? Have you got that person you can reach out to? Can you find that person to reach out to? And if you haven't, what are you going to do about it? What are you going to do when you're lost? That's something to think about.
Where are they going to answer that question?
Within themselves.
Oh, okay, not sort of send it to us.
No. We'll provide a platform in the future where
people
can start to talk about their reflections on the podcast, because I think I'd really like to hear how people are travelling out there, and if there's parts of what we're saying that are hitting the mark with some people, because I'm hearing that that's the case for some.
I find a lot of people who say things like, it's good, and I'm like, great, and there's no more. Or, even worse, I listened to your podcast. Okay. That's more.
What's the more that you're wanting from the discussion, Kevin?
Just what you said. Well, no, that's not. I'd like to hear them say, I listened to your podcast, really liked it, and I like these particular points, and here's some feedback. I'd like all of that.
I don't think you're actually looking for feedback. I'm being very cheeky here, but I think you're actually wanting the connection. Because I think that you'd be happy. I know you, I think well enough.
No, you don't.
I think I know.
Wrong.
I could be wrong. I'm happy to be wrong.
Go on.
I think what you're wanting is the connection in terms of what's happening for them. Because if someone said to you, yeah, podcast is good. I didn't like this, or I liked this because I learnt this about myself.
That's true, actually. I would like to know that.
Yeah, so it's not about the podcast. It's not about you or I. That I think part of what you're wanting is the connection.
But that's feedback, isn't it?
Well, we could call it feedback. We could call it the connection.
Okay, that kind of worked. I get that when we talk about things like this, it works. Yeah. Anyway.
Well, I like to know that my connection with people works in terms of, I think we get feedback when the person smiles. I think we get feedback when the person reaches out to us.
Oh, are you smiling? I don't know if they're smiling or not.
That's true.
Yeah.
So as we've been discussing this, I'm thinking that the feedback that you've been seeking, and we often seek in relationship, is that feedback that I matter. And I think that we really get that when someone listens to us. We can think about all the psychological things that happens when someone smiles at us. There is chemicals that actually happens as we smile back to them, and that genuine, or what I would call deep connection, occurs even if it's just for a moment. So I'm thinking, Kevin, that feedback you've been wanting is that. What do you reckon?
I'm not sure what I reckon. I think, yes, it sounds a bit too much like, hey, I've done this thing and I want you to like it so that you'll like me. That's not what I'm about.
Yeah. So that's what I said. I think the feedback you're wanting is something very different. I think you're wanting the genuine connection in the moment.
Yeah, that would be lovely. And I want to be able to do something with that. Yeah. Which is why I called it feedback.
Tell me more about I want to do something with that.
So, somebody says, I really like whichever podcast, the first podcast in with Journey. And I said, oh, okay, that's good. And wait. And they do actually tell me something that they liked about it, or they quote something from it, then that creates, or that might create that, what we're calling a connection. And I listen to them, and I want to be able to take that and take that away from them, take that back into me.
I think when those connections happen, that you're forever changed. And I might say in that moment, you are found.
Ah, lost and found. Yeah.
What do you reckon? Maybe I'm oversimplifying it, but I think that good, clear communication is that.
So before I can be found, I have to be lost.
That would be true. And the same applies the other way around. If you're lost, then you also can go back to being found.
Okay.
I think lost is around being disconnected and perhaps not knowing where you're going. And so sounds like that in those moments, your body's going to want some direction. And I think you can be lost in very different situations. I mean, we were talking about the morning, some mornings that we've had, and I'm sure our listeners have had those mornings. But I think you can be lost in social situations. I think you can be lost in family even. I think some of those are the toughest experiences.
Family?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I think so, yeah. Yeah.
I know that at times I've walked into some very tricky circumstances in amongst family, and the only thing I can do in the moment is go back to asking me, what do I want in that moment? And when I ask that, then I can see what's going on and I can take a step back from it.
Yep.
I can still be there, but emotionally take a step back from it and then grab a glass of water, give myself some space to keep working out what do I want. And I might want to disappear.
I was thinking that. Yep.
But it might be around, okay, how can I stay safe and present enough, but not be in the thick of things, or what part is my responsibility here? Do I need to respond to someone? And I want to do that in as well a way as I can. I don't know. I don't know. I'm starting to think about some of the dynamics in family, and you can hear I'm feeling it now because I'm going, oh, this is getting really tricky.
Yeah.
I'm sure others feel that way. It's almost like walking in a room. They say when you walk in a room, you get shorter and smaller when you go back to your family. And it's almost like the adult goes in there starting to get shorter, and then until they walk in and they're like a 4-year-old.
The family, that's your place into the family dynamics.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Or the 12-year-old or the 8-year-old or the teenager that wants to rebel.
And again, it's about learning, isn't it?
It is.
I can remember being invited to a party at a time when I didn't know myself well enough to say thank you, but no thanks. So I said yes, and I felt really unsafe about that, so I told my friend that I'd been invited to this party, and he said, well, I don't really want to go, but I tell you what, why don't you go and call me? if you're in there and it's not safe or it's not okay for you. So I went and it was all right for a while.
That's a good plan.
It was a good way for me at that place that I was in at that time. So I went and it was all right at first and it became not okay. There was drugs around. And I didn't feel okay about it at that time. These days I'm just like, there's drugs around. Do I want to be here? No, so I go. So I phoned up and he said, I'm just going to jump on my bike, I'll be there. And came around and collected me and we walked back through the streets of London and that was much better than where I was before.
Would you say that you were lost and then you became found?
Most definitely. Yeah. Standing in that house, in that particular room, I was like, almost paralysed.
Yeah.
And then Neil turned up and we walked home and I felt immediately thawed out.
So you had a plan of action and also it's kind of like ringing a friend.
Yeah, like I didn't want to go really.
Yeah.
And I thought that when I told him about it, he'd say, just tell him, you change your mind and you don't want to go. Instead he said, oh yeah, go.
Yeah.
You can go. It could be safe. This is how you can do it. Yeah.
So you could have made a couple of decisions in there. Yeah. You could have not gone and that would have been okay.
Yep.
You took Neil's advice and you went and you had phone a friend as a safety net.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like all
and these days, what would I do these days? I'd say thanks. No thanks. Simple, really.
Yeah. Kevin, you two, and you have done a lot of photography of rock bands and
I love doing that.
Bands and people singing, etc. When you've been in those environments, isn't that the environments where there's lots of drugs and alcohol? I mean, how do you find going into those spaces?
It's interesting how that works. So I got into doing photography of live events, mostly bands, music events, because I wanted to go and watch bands, local bands, international bands, whatever. And I kept saying to friends around my age, hey, so-and-so's on, let's go and watch them. I'll get the tickets. And they go, no, it'll be too late. And it's just like, I've got to get up in the morning, go, bugger. And even at the weekend, they'd have a reason, a very good reason why they didn't want to do it. So I thought, okay. And I knew a few people in the industry. So I phoned up a PR company and they said, yeah, sure. These are the sorts of photographs that we'd like and we'll pay you this much. And so I did that. And exactly right. Takes me into an environment.
Yeah.
Can I tell you about one?
Yeah, sure.
I went to watch the Stranglers, which was great. My friend used to manage the Stranglers, so I told him I was going along, getting paid to take some photographs, and he said, I'll arrange for you to meet them, and I didn't really want to do that. I wanted to go and take photographs. So the way that they do it when you're there as an official photographer is they have a press gallery, so you can get in front of the audience, but you've only got the ability to take photographs for the first 3 numbers, and that's it, you're out.
Okay.
So you've got 3 numbers. Because you're in front of people, you can't help but be obstructing the view of someone. So there was it was a Strangler, so maybe 10 photographers there. And I was one of them. So I did all of that, and I know I got some good shots. I already knew that. And then you're out, and I'm walking around, and the tour manager comes up and says, you want to go back? Because all the other photographers are gone. So I go back in, and I go, no, I've already done all this. So I go out. And I walk to the back and take some photographs. So I'm looking over the heads of the audience from higher up. I want to be just about there, about 5 metres from the stage. And this incredible thing happened, and it happens a lot when you've got a couple of cameras with you. I walk through the middle of the audience from the back, and people start to get out of the way. And when they don't, people are shouting, hey, photographer coming through here, let him through. So they let me through, and I ended up exactly where I wanted to be, and I got them the best photographs, better than the ones I'd had. And I totally lost track of time.
Yeah.
It's just like that running thing when you're running and, I've got to concentrate on my breathing, and now how fast am I going to click? It all disappears and you're in this zone.
Yeah. So, it's interesting because as you're talking about it, it's almost like
I come alive, don't I?
Yeah, you come alive, but you're in that zone now.
I'm back.
Yeah.
So I had no idea how it turns out it was probably 20 minutes, bit more that I was there.
Yeah.
And then suddenly someone's being lifted over my head, from the front of the audience backwards. And I went, oh, probably time to get out of here. So I moved to the side of the car. And when I got out, I was saturated in beer.
Oh, God.
And my camera was saturated in beer too. But hadn't been damaged. And so the point of that is it has no impact on me at all.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there was plenty of drugs around there.
Yeah.
But I didn't even notice. I didn't even notice the beer flying everywhere.
So you're saying is, oh, this is interesting because we're talking about lost and found, but maybe lost can be a positive thing in terms of
I didn't feel
when
lost.
I've lost in the moment.
Oh, lost in the moment. Yeah.
When I'm lost in what I'm doing,
Yeah.
then maybe I am found.
Connected.
Maybe I'm connected.
Yeah, definitely connected. I know what I'm connected to me, connected to the music.
Yeah.
Oh, it's interesting when you do those things.
Yeah.
Watching the Stranglers, yeah, it was the Stranglers. It was also with Yotha Yindi, and it was another band, I've forgotten what they're called. Anyway, it wasn't a big band. They see you,
Yeah.
whereas in the press gallery you'd think they'd see you, and sometimes they do, but they kind of ignore you.
Yeah.
But they see that you're the only photographer and you're right in the middle there, and they play to you. Like the lead guitarist from the Stranglers came over and he's leaning out so that I've got these incredible photographs of him doing just that. He's almost doubled over and he's looking straight at the camera. And those are good photographs, but they're what I call portrait photographs. So whilst they're good, I want to get photographs so that when people look at them, they know it's a live event.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and I do. You know,
Yeah.
I'm always really proud of that. Yeah.
They sound really exciting. I've seen some of your photographs. They're amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. So I just rediscovered a photograph of Deborah Conway from the Renee Gale. And, it's incredible. I just got that moment
Yeah.
where she's just letting rip.
Yeah.
And it is a kind of a portrait one, but it's also not because you can see the passion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sitting here, people, and I'm watching Kevin really involved at what he's talking about, and I can see that you're getting lost in it in a really healthy way. That's your experience when you do that. Ash is just laid beside us.
Just
Hi,
got
honey.
plonk.
And I'm seeing that that's a really good thing, and I'm thinking that that's where you find yourself. That's when you feel found, when you feel grounded.
Found, safe, grounded, connected.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like I could, in the moment, it feels like
Yeah.
I could stay there forever, but I couldn't because I'm covered in beer and, whatever. And, yeah.
Okay.
I'd have to go home and clean my camera and, yeah.
And clean yourself, I suppose.
I did. I had a shower, washed my face. It really was
Shake
covered
that
in
off.
beer.
Oh, dear.
From my hair, the camera bag, my T-shirt.
Oh dear.
But did I go home immediately? No. I took some more photographs.
Fantastic.
But I didn't even know that any of that was happening. I was just taking the photographs and really enjoying it. Yeah.
So I've got a question, and maybe it's for you and for me, is when those experiences happening, that sounds really healthy and wonderful. How can you take that experience about being lost in something and that wellness and that really safe bodily experience, how can you take that into those areas or social situations or family situations where it gets tricky, where it is tricky, where those relationships are somewhat dodgy, unsafe, a little bit tricky, but necessary to be in for whatever reason.
Be brave, that's all I can do.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you described really well about walking into, when you were talking about it, I saw you walking into a room, and me too, walking into a different room and gradually getting smaller and smaller, and smaller and smaller, going, yep. So for me, that would be, my role would be the scapegoat and the person who carries all the emotions in the family.
Yeah.
So walking into that room, remembering those times when I've been, many, many times now, I've got many great memories of taking photographs, bands and not just bands, and just getting lost in that moment and taking that into being with my family by just being me.
Yeah. Okay.
So instead of letting myself be pulled into the family dynamics, letting Kevin sit down and not getting pulled into the usual stuff, which would be things like, oh, that's just Kevin.
Yeah.
So not to get dragged in, not to even answer that.
That stuff that gets projected onto you.
Yeah,
is like,
carry on a conversation from me.
Yeah.
Not I'll be always having to play a part or defend myself. Just let that be.
Yeah, often that playing that part thing, I can think about for myself, whatever's projected onto you.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's seemingly a good thing if you're the golden child, but that comes with a whole lot of pressure and a whole lot of conditions. So I'm thinking about myself, similar to yourself, is around walking in, knowing who I am, knowing who I can be, and walking in and noticing that it's risky for me to feel smaller and to get smaller internally, and to stay tall, even stay upright in my body, and walk into that space, knowing who I am, and knowing that there might be some comments, some looks that are undeserved or that are critical or that are pushy or demanding or whatever they are, and just letting them float, or whatever I need to do to feel well in that moment and still stay connected to me.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me to know that I won't always be able to do that. So so I'll be able to do that one time, and the next time I might not be able to. So it would be about looking after myself in that situation. So, which might mean setting a time limit on it.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I can think of some things that I've done in terms of I might go, I'm going to put the kettle on.
Yeah.
And so I'm directing myself to move. And I find when I'm moving, then my body's not getting trapped in a trauma state. So it's not in that fight, flight, freeze mode. And so I'll move. And as I'm moving, I'm just remembering who I am, getting that cup of tea or that glass of water, whatever I need in the moment, and then moving about, and then keep making a choice around who do I want to sit down next to, who do I want to connect, and how do I want to connect, and taking charge of the bits that I can. And we can't always do that, but doing as best with what I can in the moment. And then I like what you said around the time limits. I'll do the time limit thing. Or again, if I need to, it might be walk outside and look at the garden, or do those sorts of things that are going to help me in the moment.
Even before I arrive, if I know that I'm not going to be able to be really strong and do the things that we were talking about, my family of origin, I'll let one or more of them know that I'm going to be leaving at a certain time.
That's a good idea.
Before I even arrive.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. And then that changes the way I feel about going in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
It gives you some rest, because there's no pressure around staying there for this unlimited time, and you've already said to people, so that there's not going to be what are you leaving for? That kind of questioning.
That's right.
There can be, but again, we can only take charge of ourselves. We can only control ourselves.
Except the way that my family of origin sees me. I've only got 2 members left now, but it doesn't matter. It's still the same issue.
Yeah.
So accept how they see me, which, from my way of thinking, is they don't see me. They see somebody who's long gone. Yeah. So there's nothing that I can do about that.
No.
So I just accept it. That's how it is.
I hope and I think that we're developing human beings, and there's a core of me that's still the same person, but there's parts of me that are very different to how I've grown up.
And I listen to and I read a lot, not listen to, a lot about spirituality. And sometimes that's about Buddhism. So they talk about how everything that we see is in stasis. It's moving all the time. It's changing.
Yep.
And sometimes I struggle with that, and sometimes I don't. And I keep thinking of examples. And then yesterday, No, day before yesterday, I listened to his podcast, and this guy it's about ideas. You know the one about big ideas?
Oh, yeah, I like that. It's an ABC
This guy
one.
was on, and he's an expert on sensory perception.
Okay.
That's what he was talking about.
Yeah.
So he chose to talk about it in terms of animals. In particular, he honed in on a bee, and it was just incredible, the information. But what blew me away was that you talk about, I'm looking at, Janine's got these beautiful flowers. I don't know what they are.
Sweet peas.
Sweet peas on the table.
And they smell great, people.
And they smell great. But I see a kind of purpley colour, is that right?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, and so the bee will see much more than that. So they see everything that we see, all the colours that we see, plus the ultraviolet light, which changes everything, including the colours we see. So much, much more. And then he went on to talk about animals' smells and stuff like that. So I'm thinking, oh wow. So the Buddhists are kind of right. Everything that we think is so permanent is changing it. That's right, he talked about how that just changes all the time. So when the bee's seeing all of these things, it's actually changing right in front of it.
Yeah.
And I didn't quite get how that works. But anyway, he was fairly clear about it. We don't always acknowledge that the stuff that we're doing and seeing is changing all the time.
I'm going to add some other things into that. I think that what you see in the flowers is going to be different to what I see in the flowers.
Totally.
Yeah. And what I love about that is then the conversations we can have about the same thing will be different, and I'll make different observations than you will. And if I'm open to hearing what you're going to say, then I might be able to see different things in the flowers if I'm open. So for me, it's more about a conversation. So I think about a problem in a similar way. So if I'm lost in a problem and I have a discussion around it, sometimes just this discussion itself will help me resolve it or hear what I'm actually telling myself or what I see or what I'm not seeing. And sometimes it might be your feedback to me or whoever I'm talking to about the problem offers me something extra or something different because you're seeing it with different eyes and hearing it with different ears.
So did you know, for instance, that I would have thought, what comes first, bees or flowers?
I knew you were going to say bee story.
Yeah, bees or flowers. It would be flowers. But it's not. It was actually bees. And the bees,
that feels like a chicken and egg question.
Well, it is, except he was really clear about it. Bees came first. And they encourage the flowers.
Okay, of course.
I don't understand how they do that, but I like that.
We're going to have some science people ring us.
Oh, yeah, they will. And
connecting
then
with us.
we'll just redirect them to this podcast. Sorry. No, I just heard this podcast. Yeah. So I'm ready to stop here.
Yeah, I think that we've covered the topic in multiple ways, and I'm really liking where this conversation's gone. Starting to see that there's different ways we can be lost and different ways we can be found.
Yeah.
And even as we're talking about it, I guess I was thinking as lost as a negative and found as a positive, but
it's not necessarily.
No, which is fascinating. For me, it's all about the conversation.
I started exactly the same. Yeah. No, it's not.
Yeah.
All right.
I've enjoyed the conversation with you, Kevin.
And I with you.
Yeah.
And that's it.
We'll look forward to chatting with you again real soon.
Okay.
Take care, and we'll see you on the flip side.
See you later.